Okay, so let's talk about CPP and HPP files. So we all have used in our day-to-day life, or have at least seen in our school times, that some extensions called as CPP and HPP existed, or you may have even heard of H.H and .C files or extensions. So these are basically C or C++ files, and these HPP and CPP files have different functions. So let's see. So HPP files are actually called interface files, and the CPP files are called implementation files. So what this interface files means? It means here we define only the structure or the layout of a function, class, or whatever that is the data structure we are designing. And in the implementation file, we actually write the logic for that data structure or function that we have created in HPP file. So as you can see here, it has only declarations. So you give the function signature and that's it. You don't have to write the logic in HPP file. You write it in C++ file. So you can basically create functions, user defined data types, custom data structures, class structures, anything. And then you write the definitions in the C++ file for the same. And the file name should be the same so that they can be linked with each other during the compilation time. Now let's look at the some code and how to use them in practical. Okay, so I'll jump into VS Code, and here you can see we have three files open. So one is the function.hpp, and that is function.cpp, and then program.cpp, where uh, we'll be using these files to bring some output. So the HPP files we see a class defined. Class is defined. We have some public methods inside it. Now for the methods of the functions, we have is the function return type, the name, and the argument types. Okay, we don't have any definition or the body of what it actually does. We just have these signatures. Now as you can see in this function add method, we don't have even the parameter names, so that also can be excluded in the HPP files. Okay, so that is it. Now here also we have these two header files. Basically you can include all the header files that will be required either in HPP file or the CPP files where we write the logic. Now let's jump onto the CPP file. So here what we see is we in the header files we've imported the function or HPP that does contain the function declarations, the signatures. So it's a local import. That's why you have this inverted commas. We can mention the entire path here. Let's say if it was in a different folder, one folder above, we could use something like this. So dot dot slash, thing like this, and it would be found. Okay, so now also we have included IO stream for the std cout operations functions. Now let's coming to these function definitions. We can see that we have the add, subtract, multiply, and display operations methods and their implementation inside it. So what you're actually doing, it is taking two arguments. It is returning a plus b. The add method, the subtract method is returning a minus b. Multiply is returning a into b, and the display operations is printing some of the operations, some lines, right? And all of them belongs to that class itself. So we have used this syntax here to scope this function to the class. Okay, so that is it. Now let's move on to the program.cpp, where you have used all these functions. Now here the first thing to notice that we're including the function.hpp, not the CPP. Now this is a very important reason. There is a very important reason to do that. So first thing is that it's by convention that we should import HPP files, and we because it adds a layer of abstraction, and we don't want to expose all the implementations and all that. So we don't import the CPP file, and it's widely practiced standard convention. Okay, so that is there. In the main function, what we have is we have this created an object of the calculator class, and on the object we're calling these functions. Okay, so let's run this display operations functions first, and then run these two. So we'll now comment these two lines and then open that display operations line, right? Okay, let's uncomment this line here. Okay, so now let's see how to run it. So what we generally do, so if you have to run a C++ file in the G++ compiler, we generally type this. G++ program.cpp and main. So what you're doing is basically we're telling the compiler that compile this file and create an executable which is output minus o, which is called as main. So it will create an executable file which is main.exe and we'll rerun that. So now let's press enter. Okay, so we have got an error here. So it says that undefined reference to calculator display operations. Okay, so it means basically is that it can't find this particular function or the class that we have used, but we have included it in the HPP file. Then why it can't find this? Because hash include is basically a copy paste thing, so it is copying all the things and pasting it here, right? But there is no actual link between this program.cpp and the function.cpp, right? So it doesn't know where it is located. So basically you have to let the compiler know during the compile time that this is here. So we need to compile it together. So let's do that. So G++ program.cpp and then we want to compile function.cpp as well and create an executable same as before as main.exe. So we're compiling both these CPP files and we'll be creating an executable called main.exe. Let's do that. Okay, so it's done now. Now if we check this folder, we'll be seeing that we have a new file main.exe. Okay, so you see this is here. Now let's try to execute this main.exe. Let's see what it returns. So /main.exe. Okay, so now it returns something. So it returns the statements which was we saw that it was stdc out, right? So it is actually working. So the compiler was able to link both these files and then it started to print some statements. Now let's comment this line out from program.cpp and implement those other methods as well. Okay, so comment this out and let's uncomment these two. Yeah. Now what happens if you run the main.exe again? Okay, we get something else. We didn't get the required output, right? We're expecting the addition and multiplication results, but we got the same thing as before. Now why is that? Because with this executable file created was when this line was these two lines were commented out and this line was uncommented. So basically we need to compile this program again. Okay, so let's do it. So this was the command, hit enter, it is compiled. Now the main.exe will contain these two function runs. Executable will contain these two function calls and the results of it. Okay, so let's run main.exe now. Okay, so we get 18. So adding 3 plus 5 we get 8 and multiplying 2 with 9 we get 18. This is expected, right? So now we saw that how the files are to be linked, what is HPP and CPP files and how they're to be used. Okay, so you can so here only we saw a definition of the class, but you can also implement some other stuff, other functions, complex data structures and all of that. Okay, so I hope this has given you a broad overview of HPP and CPP files. Okay, then thanks for watching. Bye.